This is a Tyco Chattanooga, and if you couldn't tell, it's quite broken. It has no rear tender, and that's because the whole entire drive system on that was completely toast. But this engine does have some really good cosmetics. So, what I want to do is swap it with another very, very similar Tyco, this Clementine, which I've had for such a long time. It is in really rough cosmetic shape, but the tender mechanics in it are quite good. So what I want to do is give this engine, with much better cosmetics, a new lease on life with this powered tender unit, and then I'll save this for parts. And don't worry, I will still have a Clementine in my collection, because I have another one to restore in an upcoming video. Just to give a little bit of background, I bought this Tyco Chattanooga in a lot of trains for $40. It had, I believe, 4 engines and 7 freight cars or something like that. 4 engines, 3 freight cars. Something along that variety, and this thing was just kind of an interesting piece. But when I went to restore it in a recent video, the tender block assembly, the whole Tyco Power Torque thing, the pivots were broken off on it for whatever reason, so I could not get the thing running again, and I've been using it for parts. So, I want to get my Clementine, which is in really rough cosmetic shape, and I want to get this thing to just be used for parts, because I have another Clementine that I want to restore, and I want to maybe use some of these cosmetic pieces from this one. So I want to get this thing running, and use this, what remains of it, to restore my other Tyco Clementine in an upcoming video. So, to begin, I'm going to get this out of the way, and we've got to get the tender drive out of this tender. To start, I've just got to get the tender shell off, which is really easy. This I can usually do by hand on these. Forgot that I had extra weights in here. And also of note, in this thing I actually have some magnets, and these are neodymium. I actually put these in here to help with the current draw, and it seems like it's helped make the thing run quite a bit. I'm going to leave them in here for the time being, because they don't pose any real major risks, so I'm not going to worry too much about them. Actually, I might just take them out of the way. But to start, I'm going to grab a screwdriver, and I just want to unscrew all of these little pickups here, because these are not going to be reused. Now, the next step is I'm just going to have to unsolder just about everything in here, because I don't need this top wire, nor am I going to need these 2 wires here. Alright, so next up, I can just slide this out of the way, and all I've got to do is there is a screw in here, and there's a plate that's actually holding both of these on. I need to remove this plate, hopefully without removing the brush, or the brush plate. Since it seems to be holding itself on there, I can bring this back over here, and I'm just going to start by screwing this exact same part right back into place. Alright, so now that that's in, the next thing I need to do is I need to solder this red wire on. Which, to do that, first I'm going to let the soldering iron heat back up a little bit. That is not the best, but it'll definitely work. And then, really, I think all I've got left to do is to screw both of these back into place. Alright, so I think I can close this up now. Hopefully keep all the wires in here. And I'm just going to go test this thing out off camera, make sure all the screws are in the right positions and all that. Then I might change one other little thing on camera quickly, and then we can finish it off. The good news is, after just that little bit of work, this thing runs quite well. So this thing's going to be sitting around in my parts bin. I'm hoping to restore the other Clementine shortly, because I might send this one off to someone, at least what remains of the parts of it. But I've got one other little tiny thing that I want to address with this unit, and it's incredibly small. If you can see on here, it's kind of hard to see, but this rear, I think truck cover is what you'd call it, it's a really weird part on the Tycos, is actually broken here, and the coupler height is quite wrong. And off of the old one, when I parted it out, I had this nice, fairly new one that's all fresh and clean. So my thought is, before we close this out, I just want to swap this part over, because I have it laying around, and it'll make a pretty big difference. Because this thing I've had to re-glue several times, because it keeps wanting to break, and I'd rather not have that happen anymore, and I'd just rather solve it with a good part. I guess it glued itself to the block pretty well. See if I can break it off with some pliers. Apparently I glued it rather well, for this part at least. I didn't think I need pliers to remove this, but... And yes, I know these are wire strippers. These are the closest thing I could grab immediately. Alright, there we go. So now I can throw that junk one away, and I can just throw this nice brand new cover back onto here. Hopefully. Well, that's odd. I'm just going to see. Now, I'm going to work on this gap here, because I am pretty sure whatever's wrong is that this gap is too small. So I'm going to see if I can clean it out with an X-Acto knife, and then I'll come back once I got the thing cleaned out enough. Alright, I think that's the best I'm going to be able to get the thing. The whole block here, I think, is quite rough. I got rid of the ones from the old tender. I think it'll work perfectly fine, but it'll just be a little bit off. But it'll be much better than the part being broken. So I'll get this screw in, stick the shell back on, and then I'll just show you the thing running, even though not much has changed. Alright, it's time for me to give this thing a quick brief test run. Alright, let me just give it a little test run for you. It does run perfectly fine. Backwards, it's a little bit sluggish. But something tells me I just need to run this thing a little bit more. So, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the fact that I finally got to give this thing another lease on life.